Welcome to the Expat Show for English-speaking expats in Germany. And what a show we have for you today. Hello, I'm Barry Redfern.
And I'm Scott Haslett.
And we've a very full programme today. If you liked the Sylvester TV sketch, Dinner for One, then stay with us because we have an exclusive interview with a man building a museum dedicated to it.
Yes, and we visit the town about to celebrate the rhododendron with Europe's biggest and best floral display of its kind.
We look back over the glorious history of the British Military Broadcasting Service in Germany, BFBS, and also visit the last surviving theatre specially built for troops after the war.
And we have a look at the German fondness for asparagus.
All that on the menu, plus a look at what's been in the news, and a very special look at life from our man in Bavaria, Andrew Bossum.
I'll be reflecting on life in the tranquil countryside and reflecting on its less agreeable aspects.
So, all that to look forward to in an action-packed programme today. Now, did you know that as well as all the German television and radio channels here, there are networks also broadcasting in English? Yes, the British Forces Broadcasting Service, BFBS, which sprang into life after the war. For decades now, BFBS has entertained and informed service personnel based in Germany. I asked one of its leading presenters, Andy Asprey, about its great past and its future.
BFBS in Germany it initially started in 1944 in the Algiers, and then moved to the Musikhalle in Hamburg, to what was then their new quarters all those years ago. Moved to Cologne, where we were in Cologne for many years, then moved to Herford in 1990, moving on to having then at the time still had a radio station in Berlin. That closed, obviously, sadly. Always sad to see these stations close. We then had a station in Hohne, not far away from Belsen, Bergen-Belsen, and now, of course, currently we have our radio station here in Paderborn. But over the years, we've had some great presenters as well coming in.
Yes, so quite a few famous names began their careers with BFBS.
They did indeed, and these names will certainly ring a bell when I give you names like Cliff Mitchell-Moore, Dennis Skews, Gene Metcalf, Bill Crozier, also Sarah Kennedy as well, and of course the classic show that was a sort of collaboration with the BBC and BFBS was of course Two-Way Family Favourites.
Oh yes,
it was a great show, and you know what? I mean, everyone talks about FaceTime and going on Skype to have to keep in touch with families. You cannot beat hearing a child on the radio saying hello to dad who might be on an exercise in Estonia or Poland, for example. That's just something you just cannot beat. And so we had our show, which is the worldwide network show. It's a show called Totally Connected that goes out to all our stations around the world. And one of our presenters, Hal Stewart, came over from the UK to Germany to present his show here for a week. Only next door in the NAFI, for example, One Armoured Medical Regiments were doing a charity for a charity cycle back to the UK on these bikes in the NAFI, covering a distance of nigh on 1,000 miles. And the luxury of this technology, I was actually able to go next door, report live into the show using my mobile phone and a little bit of kit attached to it, and at the same time we could do FaceTime, Facebook Live. So not only could you hear my voice and hear me doing the report on the radio, but also you can actually see the guys and girls away pedaling away like mad on Facebook at the same time. So that the connectivity is absolutely amazing. I mean, great hearing voices and music on the radio, but to actually be able to see it at the same time and live is really something else.
So it's really cross-media nowadays, cross-platform.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And BFBS hasn't just been radio anyway all these years. It has had television as well.
Yes, we've had television. We still do. It's called Forces TV, which is a nice mix of classic television shows, all with a sort of military edge. So, I mean, you've got things like MASH, you've got things like Hogan's Heroes, along with some very, very good news-based programs, which are all forces related. So that's a nice little mix that you have Forces TV along with Forces Radio as well. Then we have our entertainments where we still entertain the troops. It was called ENSA back in the day. It then became Combined Services Entertainment. So we'll send comedians, dancers, rock bands, of course, to places like the Falklands.
And of course, some people will be thinking about the BBC comedy show from years ago called It Ain't Half Hot, Mum.
That you've hit the nail bang on the head. That's exactly what it is. Good old ENSA. And I think one person once said it is every day something awful, or I think but it isn't. And it also have as well another fantastic setup, which is the cinemas, and we still have Forces cinemas based around the world. So the lads and lasses can pop along to here in Germany. Have one in Paderborn. We want to have one in Gütersloh as well, so they can go and see the very latest films.
Andy, thank you very much for talking to us. Thank you for your time.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Barry. It really has, and I wish you all the very best with your radio station.
Andy Asbury there of the British Forces Broadcasting Service, BFBS. And you can hear a longer version of that interview as a separate podcast on our YouTube channel a little later on, maybe tomorrow, if not today. As Andy mentioned, SSVC, the parent organisation of BFBS, also operates theatres and cinemas. A little later on in this programme, we'll be visiting one of the original cinemas specially built for troops in Germany and hear about plans to restore it. Well, we've a lot coming up. We'll be looking at a celebration of the rhododendron. We'll be going down to Bavaria to hear from Andrew Bossum about a special look at life, as he always does. And also we'll be hearing the latest about Brexit and the asparagus, the German fondness for asparagus. But first, before all that, let's have a look at the news. And joining us is a new man in our team. It's Bastian Spiller, who's got a roundup of all things that have been in the German news recently. Bastian.
Well, not all news, but I browsed the news sites and came up with a selection of headlines. And the first headline is very, very important to Germans here, especially in the northwest of Germany right now. The prices for German asparagus have gone up 40%. Last year, you could buy the kilogram for €7.11, and now it is up to €9.97. And this obviously has to do that here in Germany, the Spargel is called a Edelgemüse, or the noble vegetable. I suppose we will hear something more about it later on the...
We do. We have a special interview about Spargel or asparagus later on. But you say the price has gone up by 40%. Mm-hmm. Why is that?
Well, last year the harvesting season kicked off a bit earlier, I think, and right now the demand is so high that the prices are rocketing sky high. I suppose later in the year, when the demand will decrease, then the prices will go down. So it's not all that terrible, the outlook.
Oh dear. Right. Okay. So it's not a disaster then?
Not a disaster. Okay, something more serious. Here in Germany, we have something called the Echo Music Awards, and the Echo will be no more. Why is that? Well, the Echo was scrapped because the last music awards were given to, among other musicians, of course, to rappers who won the prize for a rap album with allegedly anti-Semitic lyrics. And in the aftermath, several artists gave back their awards, most notably famous conductor Daniel Barenboim. The rappers Farid Bang and Kollega are known for homophobic and misogynistic lyrics, and they had a very terrible line in one of their rap songs. They said, "Our bodies are more defined than an Auschwitz prisoner."
Oh.
So, and the award was, I think the award was presented on the same day as the Holocaust Memorial Day in Germany, and the outcry was huge.
Yeah.
A speaker for the Germany's Music Industry Association said, "The Echo brand is so badly damaged that a complete new beginning is necessary. The Echo will be no more." So let's see what will follow. So much for the echoes that have been no echo anymore. The next news item I found. Well, I have been a student for far too many years, so this hits home. More than 500,000 students in Germany suffer from mental health illnesses.
Really?
Yeah, there has been a study published by the Barmer health insurance provider last week, and not last week, in early March. And the CEO of Barmer, Dr. Christoph Straub, said, "Many signs show that there will be significantly more mentally ill young people in the future." And he thinks that this has a lot to do with heightened pressure. There is pressure having to do with time management, personal performance, financial worries, and of course fears about the future. And the CEO of Barmer thinks that online help will become more and more important in the future because many students are ashamed of, going to a doctor or a therapist. So he believes that the more anonymous health services will become more important. Well, let's see how this will work out. I can't imagine that will work that well. I've been a member in a procrastination self-help group. Yes, I have my outing now. And I remember that it really helped to hear from other students who had, piled up work, and it really helped to hear the others' perspectives. So, and I managed my bachelor's and master's. So, yeah. Okay. A woman claimed that U.S. nuclear weapons stationed in Germany could be a terror target and sought to force the government to have them removed. But she failed to convince Germany's highest court that her basic rights were jeopardized by the presence of the missiles, which she claimed could be a potential terrorist target. So, long story short, a fact that many Germans don't know is that we have U.S. nukes here on German soil.
I didn't know that. Did you know that, Scott?
Yes. Well, they back in the, the 70s, 80s, people demonstrated against the Pershing missiles. And this is a very strategic area here, and that's their complaint that back then was, well, if there's a war or if there's a first strike from Russia, they're going to hit us first here in Germany, and in the States they'll be sitting there as they did, for example, in the World Wars. No one attacked continental United States. So I would say that's one aspect of having the missiles here is, well, if someone's going to attack, then they'll attack where the missiles are first instead of going to the States.
Yes, nice.
So the nukes are stationed in Büchel and Cochem-Zell, some 108 kilometers west of Frankfurt. So not exactly here. But a fun fact, my fiancé's grandfather was a high-ranking officer in the NVA, the East German army, and he told me that in the case of a war, Oldenburg would have been flat. So
right, on that happy note, the next item for listeners away from us, Oldenburg is our nearest city.
That's right.
Yes, but this region here is, of course, has always been a big military base. Okay, and the last topic is the most serious topic, and I couldn't go over it. There is a knife crime epidemic in Germany happening right now, and there is a debate going on whether or not this epidemic is caused by refugees or irregular migrants. We have every weekend now, it seems, knife attacks. I found an article which wrote that on a weekend late in March, there had been 3 knife attacks. One where a 24-year-old woman in Burgwedel was stabbed and was stabbed critically. On the same day, a 15-year-old schoolboy was stabbed in Bochum. A day earlier, there was a group fight between men at Wiesbaden Central Station with stabbings going on. And in each of these cases, the culprits were Syrian or Afghan refugees.
And what's the official line on all this?
Well, and this is where it gets tricky. The German police unions call for knife crime to be published in nationwide statistics. And right now it seems to be a terrible game of, well, you could call it statistipoli. It depends on how you read the statistics. Of course, the right side of the political spectrum will say we have to do something against migrant crime. And on the other side of the spectrum, well, it's, I suppose, the official line. People will argue that the crime rates have actually gone lower and lower. So a huge discussion going on. We could do, I think, one whole show about it.
Yeah, I'm sure we could. Thank you very much, Bastian. I know that we could go on and on with some of those topics, but Bastian is a new member of our team. Well done indeed. We welcome you back. Yes. We hope you come back next month.
I will.
Wonderful. Well, on now to the Rodo. Every 4 years, a small town in the west of Lower Saxony is transformed into a sea of colour. Westerstede is once again celebrating what it believes to be a very special plant, the rhododendron. The Rodo is a big event. Grass is removed, structures moved, and tons of peat brought in. Tents are erected and special displays constructed everywhere. It's a massive operation, as Tolka Schneider, the Rodo's exhibition manager, explained.
The Rodo is the biggest event in Europe for rhododendron, so I don't think there's any similar exhibition in Europe. And the special thing is we work together with about 50 nurseries, and they have to get all these rhododendrons at the same time in full bloom. So a few of them you have to put into cold areas. The whole 12 days, all the flowers, all the rhododendron have to be at the same time in full bloom.
Where do the visitors come from? From just around this town, or where?
We've got visitors from all over the world. From Germany, of course, but we have visitors from whole Europe, and we've got a American Rhododendron Society which is visiting us on the Rodo. So we've got a lot of fans in the whole world. It's the center of the universe, I would say so, yeah, for 12 days in May, yeah. So
it's a very big event. Yes. How many people do you expect to come here?
We hope that there will be about 70,000 people coming over here to visit the Rodo during the 12 days.
And then at the end of it, what happens?
Yeah, everything we have built into the city, we have to build back, or how's it called? So there's a lot of work to do after the Rodo, and that's maybe why we plan more than 1 year, 2 years before the Rodo starts and after that. So we always say before the Rodo is after the Rodo, and after the Rodo is before the Rodo. So
it's a continuing job.
Yes.
If over 4 years it doesn't stop.
No, not really.
Tolka Schneider there, part of the team managing the Rodo, a celebration of the rhododendron. Now, let's hope the technical connections are working as far as Bavaria, because we're calling up our man down there, Andrew Bossum, for a look at live.
How are you with hay fever?
Well, I'm okay. What about you?
I don't usually suffer too much. which is really lucky living out here in the country. I mean, you really won't enjoy life much if you're sensitive to pollen, because if there is one thing that we have in abundance down here, it's pollen. I mean, I noticed this last week when we had a short shower of rain. It was not long after we'd cleaned the windows, so it was with a certain amount of disappointment that I noticed the skylight in my study was covered in a thin yellow film. That same film was everywhere else as well. The streets, the cars, even the cats. Aha! Pine pollen. Now, we country folk aren't stupid. We know a cash cow when we see one. What we do with pine pollen is scoop it up and sell it as a miracle health food supplement to boost male virility. But even that only deals with a fraction of the problem, which is that for a few days in the year, the air is thick with the stuff. This is one of the less agreeable sides to living in the country. You might not choke to death on diesel fumes, but there are plenty of other things you can choke to death on. There was that time a few days ago when for half a day there were tractors going back and forth past the house on the way to and from the fields at the back. That's already bad enough when you're trying to do a bit of sound recording and it sounds like a convoy of armoured vehicles. But these tractors were towing tanks. I mean, not tanks with guns, tanks designed to hold liquids. The liquids in this case was liquid manure. 100% organic. Basically, the stuff that comes out of the back end of cows. They spread it on the fields as a fertilizer. So even though by the time my wife came home from work, the noise had stopped, the smell was pretty noticeable. Towing tanks, what we refer to as a healthy country smell, designed to hold liquids past the liquids in this case was dung. Yeah, liquid manure. And if any of you city types come over here hoping for a tranquil rural paradise, you may be disappointed. You're probably expecting the comforting coo of the wood pigeon or the melodious song of the common blackbird, but what you get is the sound of the lesser-spotted chainsaw, the rhythmic throb of the unevenly weighted cement mixer, and the ominous kaboom of the exploding Lance Bulldog tractor. Indeed, peace and tranquility is something that is in surprisingly short supply here. The locals have been protesting for years about the fact that our village is right underneath one of the holding stacks for Frankfurt Airport, but frankly, that is the least of our worries. This is the country. There is always work to be done, and it is always noisy. At least in the city, the noise is fairly constant, becoming a sort of general background hum that you can tune out. You'd be amazed, for example, at the number of times they have to call the fire brigade out with the sirens and everything. More often than not, somebody has to be airlifted to hospital, so we get the helicopter as well. Oh, and dogs barking and howling as they try to outdo the sirens. And of course, there are the lawn mowers. You wouldn't believe the number of lawn mowers we have over here in all shapes and sizes, from little hover mowers to vast beasts that can seat a small family. Oh, and leaf blowers. Heaven only knows why anyone would need a leaf blower in the spring, but my neighbours can find a reason. Yes, this is life in the country, in all its sneezing, hammering, mowing, strimming, howling, wailing, ploughing, harvesting, sawing, barking, backfiring, tree felling, airlifting, cement mixing, leaf blowing glory. And let's not forget the armies of old men trying to recapture their youth by tearing up the valley on Harley Davidsons. Because what better way is there to enjoy the beautiful countryside than sitting astride a badly tuned internal combustion engine?
Boy, am I glad I live in Oldenburg.
But I mean, here it's just, it can be extreme because, literally as soon as it's warm enough or dry enough to go outside, something has to be done that involves cement mixers, chainsaws, and buzz saws as well. That's another one.
I am sorry, Andrew. Sorry about all that.
He chooses to live there.
We'll send you some earplugs.
Right.
You're not really sorry, are you?
No, we're not. We're not at all.
No. I mean, it's really annoying when, as I say, if you have to. I mean, you probably can sympathise with this, Barry, if you're trying to do some kind of sound recording.
I can indeed, with certain barking dogs.
Yeah. It was like you remember John Peel, famous Radio 1 DJ?
I do indeed, yes.
Well, if you remember, John Peel used to record his shows in his garden shed, and he used to sort of occasionally apologise because there was some noise going on in the background.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's live radio, you know.
That is.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was live radio. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know why I bothered mentioning it.
well.
Now it was just an aside.
Well, talking of broadcasting, earlier we heard about BFBS. So this is a suitable cue about British Forces Broadcasting Service we were talking about, which has been entertaining and informing the troops ever since the war with its radio and television channels. And we also heard in that item, if you remember, about a part of the organisation's other work, which is theatres and cinemas. And several cinemas were built in Germany after the war. All of those original theatres have closed, but one remains complete with some of its fittings and is being restored to its former glory, as John Goodyear now reports.
Hi, John. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Welcome to the Globe.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. Shall we take a look
very
inside?
nice.
I've come to the Globe. No, not the famous Shakespeare Globe in London, but the Globe in Oldenburg. It is the last remaining theatre of its kind, built to entertain British troops after the war. Showing me around is Michael Olsen.
It's not just a cinema. It's a theatre, a concert room, and a cinema.
So it's a multifunctional building,
It's a multifunctional building, yes.
a theatre and a cinema. Shall we go and take a look at the stage?
It's a little typical British because it's rich stuffed, but it's distinguished as well.
And we're now standing in front of what is where the orchestra would sit.
The golden wall paper, it's tissue. It's wall tissue, golden, and the pink and the light brown and the blue-green ceiling. It's glorious. The stage is quite as big as the stage we have in the Oldenburger Staatstheater. Everything is electric.
Everything's electric?
Yes, it's a very, very rare electrical system, and it's unique in Germany.
Coming back to the stage, Mickey, we have these 5 letters, G-L-O-B-E. Where did you get these from?
In my opinion, that's greatest location of British Empire. G-L-O-B-E.
The letters also make up the name of the trust that has been set up to renovate the theatre and the cinema. One of its members, Duncan Howson.
I'm a member of the charitable trust. I joined because I think it's a magnificent project, but I also have a connection via my job. I'm a teacher at the Jade University of Applied Sciences, and with some colleagues who are from the Department of Civil Engineering, we started a few projects here to examine the building and look at the damage to the building. Some of our students specialise in restoration of old buildings, and I'm just particularly happy about the cooperation between our university and the young people.
Looking back at history then, Duncan, this was one of many cinemas built across Germany for troops to entertain and to enlighten them. And I believe that ENSA was involved.
I would say it's part of a very long British tradition of entertaining the troops, which started much before this cinema was built. I believe ENSA started in the First World War, at the end of the First World War, and a particularly British tradition. The entertainment of the troops was taken very seriously. As we can see, this building is not just a shack that was put up for showing some films. It's a beautiful theatre.
But the British didn't get to enjoy the fruits of their labour for very long. Shortly after it was built in the mid-1950s, the keys were handed over to the German army. Olaf Hibbeler, another trust member.
I think the Germans took the theater, the whole area here for the Bundeswehr, and I think it works until the end of the 80s, the last century, and afterwards the Bundeswehr left the area and it was gone here.
So the Bundeswehr were actually actively using the theatre, the cinema in that time?
Yeah, just for the Bundeswehr, not for the people around here, just for the Bundeswehr and just as a cinema, not as a theatre.
And what do you think they used it for?
Action films, action movies, something like this, just for the men here.
It wasn't just films shown at the Globe. Newsreels formed a regular part of the repertoire, but the projectors have long since gone. Michael Olsen again.
We are a big group of people. We have to discuss this. I think it's very, very necessary, and for the officials as well, to have here some two original machines, and we get them. We get new machines from the elder machine from 1950 and the younger machine from the 60s, and we get them offered from the University of Oldenburg.
Really? So,
yes.
In other words, this could be like a museum?
Of course, perhaps. That's possible.
John Goodyear there reporting on plans to restore the Globe, a former British Forces theatre in Oldenburg. Oh, coming up a little later, we'll be looking at the law as it affects or likely to affect expats when Brexit finally happens. And we'll also be looking at the German fondness for asparagus. Yes. And talking of dinner, what about dinner for one? Do you remember much about that, Scott?
I watch it almost every year.
Every year, you see, you're
yes.
one of the dedicated ones.
Same procedure as last year, same procedure as every year.
Right.
What?
Well, the sketch starring British actor Freddie Frinton has become obligatory viewing, hasn't it, for millions of Germans?
They show it on all the third channels here.
Every
you can
year.
Watch it several times if you want.
Yeah. It's got quite a cult following. And the strange thing is, Freddie Frinton, these days, Freddie Frinton's the star, of course.
He's dead, right?
He's dead, has been for a long time now. These days, he's almost unknown in Britain, even in his hometown of Grimsby,
right, yeah.
which just happens to be twinned with the German city of Bremerhaven.
Oh.
Well, the fans of Dinner for One are to have, they'll be very pleased about this, they're going to have their own very special place of homage, a museum dedicated to Frinton's performance. And what better place to have it than, no, not Grimsby where he was born, but Bremerhaven. The idea was the brainchild of Mike Landry. He's chairman of the Town Twinning Association.
Freddie Frinton was born in Grimsby. Grimsby being the twin town of Bremerhaven, seemed the right place to have the museum. Not many people in this country remember Freddie Frinton, and I suggested to the family that his stage props and everything, items from Dinner for One, should be shown in Bremerhaven.
But why not Grimsby? Why not Grimsby rather than Bremerhaven?
Well, there wasn't. People didn't know who Freddie Frinton was, and the other thing was down to the cost of showing these. Obviously, the tiger skin is very delicate; it needs to be looked after in a special way, and the museum designers in Bremerhaven seemed to know what to do with it. It was a no-brainer.
Now, that's interesting that Freddie Frinton is big here in Germany, but most people haven't heard of him over in Grimsby, his hometown.
No, that's right. He was popular in the 60s. He made a TV show with Thora Hird called Meet the Wife.
I have to say, I'm showing my age now. I can remember that.
So can I. Interestingly enough, that program is mentioned in one of the Beatles songs called Good Morning, where they say it's going home for a cup of tea and watch Meet the Wife.
You're going to take all the artifacts, all these props, over to Bremerhaven and set up a museum. When do you think the museum will be ready for opening then?
We envisage the museum opened winter 2019, so in about 18 months.
About 18 months' time, and then everybody in Germany can come to the museum and learn more about Freddie Frinton.
And see the famous tiger skin. You won't be able to touch it, but you can certainly see it.
Why do you think Germans like this sketch so much?
Oh, you've got me. It's funny. It appeals, doesn't it?
It is a clever sketch. It is well written, yeah.
Freddie Frinton's timing is perfect.
Will the surviving members of the Frinton family be coming over for the grand opening ceremony?
They've been invited, and I guess if they're all able to, they will. They'll be there.
What do they think of it all, that this sketch goes out every year in Germany and he's so famous here?
I think, like you and I, it's unbelievable. They can't quite grasp it, even now after 53 years.
That was Mike Landry, who's working with the Frinton family to open a museum here in nearby in Bremerhaven, dedicated to Dinner for One. And I gather that my microphone is dying, and it's coming back. I don't know what's happening. Just bear with us. There is a problem with the studio today. As Brexit talks progress, we'll be continuing to monitor what's happening and how expats might be affected. Last month, we spoke to campaigners fighting for the rights of expats. Today, we're turning our attention to legal issues, residency and citizenship. I asked Alexander Baron von Engelhardt, a Berlin lawyer specializing in immigration law and issues about problems expats might face. If a British expat here takes no action, what might they face once Brexit comes into force?
Well, when Brexit kicks in, first of all, nothing will happen. There will not be a police officer knocking at the door wanting to put handcuffs on that person and quickly kick him out of the country. That will not happen for sure, because these persons have a legal status right now in Germany, and that legal status will continue as is, and then it depends. It depends on how long this person has been inside Germany. If this person has been inside for 5 years or more, then it will be practically only a formality to collect a permanent residence certificate from the immigration office. And if this person is less than 5 years inside Germany, then this will be considered as a temporary stay, or this means after a year or so, sometime soon, they ought to connect with their immigration authority and require a residence permit. And such permit would have to be on what reason they are in for Germany.
What about travelling? I mean, could they travel and go and live in another EU country? Does it give them EU rights outside of Germany?
No, because their EU status has ended. That means they're a third country foreigner, and typically they would be subject to having a permission that is a visa, to enter any other country. It is not yet clarified that Britons will receive a similar status like Americans or Australians, these so-called visa waiver candidates, which means that they can come into any European country, settle down, and then apply for a residence permit.
So what's the legal difference then between permanent residency and citizenship?
Permanent residency simply is a permission for a foreigner inside his host country to live here indefinitely without any further ado. This also includes unrestricted work permission whatsoever.
But if you do want to be part of Europe, you do need German citizenship, basically, then after Brexit?
If you want to have German citizenship after Brexit and have been living here for 8 years already, then I would go for it now, because EU citizens are privileged not to have to renounce their pre-momentary citizenship. They can become dual citizens when they apply right now, because afterwards they're not member of the EU, and then there are normal third nationals, and they have to generally renounce their previous citizenship.
So on advantages, would you say then that if someone is able to, it would be a good idea to go for citizenship?
If he intends to live here on a permanent basis with no further hassle and wants to participate in elections and enjoy citizens' rights, then yes, go ahead for German nationality. If this candidate is only interested in just living here, is not politically interested whatsoever what's going on here, just as happy when his life is safe, then just keep on with permanent residency, and that'll be sufficient.
Berlin immigration lawyer Alexander Baron von Engelhardt talking about issues there facing expats once Brexit happens. And we'll try and keep you up to date with all things happening over Brexit as we hear about them. Scott, you were talking to me while we were listening to that interview about giving up citizenship and dual citizenship.
Right. Well, that's in the last show. One of your guests expressed concern that the British government would not allow you to relinquish your British citizenship. That's not true. They can't stop you from doing it. I relinquish my American citizenship. That is the condition, since there's no dual citizenship, and there won't be after Brexit, I imagine, unless they make a deal. You have to give up your British citizenship and show that you're going to have citizenship in Germany. And first you go to the Germans and say, I want to become a citizen here. They give you, they check you, and then when you fulfill all the requirements, then they give you a paper that says, yes, you can become a German citizen. You go to the British government and say, look, I've got this paper, and they say, okay. Then you have to swear an oath that says, I am giving up my British citizenship. I know what that means. And then you get a certificate from them. You go back to the German government, and they give you German citizenship.
Yeah.
I think the thing is that the contention about the statement was that the British government doesn't allow you to do that. There are countries where you literally cannot give up your citizenship, and then under those circumstances, you can then get dual citizenship in Germany. It's quite rare, but it does happen.
But that won't be the case with Britain, I'm sure, unless they make some kind of an extra deal. When Brexit goes into force, the course will be what I exactly
well, at the moment,
described.
when you apply for citizenship, they ask you if you're giving up your British citizenship to become German. But you can have dual citizenship at the moment in Germany. But I gather that might change after Brexit.
Well, otherwise, we'll be in the same situation Americans have always been as non-members of the EU.
Right. Well, just changing the subject, something completely different. One thing you might have noticed if you've lived here a while is the way Germans celebrate food and drink. They really do, don't they? I mean, with beer, it's celebrated in a big way, particularly down Andrew's way, I think. Well, further south, maybe in Munich. And over the next few weeks, many tons of asparagus will be consumed, and in many different dishes. But why is this vegetable considered so special? Well, here in the studio, on behalf of the great German nation, and at great expense, we have one of its most ardent and appreciative supporters, Marga Wienert. Welcome to the show, Marga.
Thank you for inviting me, Barry.
It's a pleasure. So I gather you've come hot foot from cooking another batch of asparagus in your kitchen.
No, not really in the morning, but indeed, I was out to an asparagus farmer yesterday, so I invited some persons for tonight. And directly after the show, I have to prepare my meal.
How much preparation is involved? I mean, it's a big thing, this, isn't it? The whole family and friends come, and it's a spargle evening.
So I'm a bit lazy. I just buy peeled asparagus, so I don't have to do the work myself. It really kills a lot of time. But otherwise you need to have maybe 2 or 3 hours. It depends on if you would like to prepare a soup or not.
Why do people like it so much in Germany?
I think it's just a thing of, it's a short season. It's just maybe 6 to 8 weeks, and then it stops. So in the end of June, you can't really enjoy that, only deep frozen.
I was going to say, you can freeze it, can you?
Yes, you can, but it's a little bit different taste. So fresh is always better.
So Germans are connoisseurs. They would never freeze this.
Yes, they do, of course. They also would like to take it for different dishes during winter time, but they like to enjoy it the fresh way.
Coming to Germany and seeing so much asparagus around at this time of the year, and so many dinners and parties and so on, it's almost a cult, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. We enjoy it with other people. We do trips around with our bicycle and then go to a restaurant, have a asparagus buffet, we enjoy that.
Is it just one form of asparagus? There are different colours, aren't there?
Yeah, you can buy green asparagus and with violet asparagus, but I think, I never tasted green asparagus because I know you can fry it and,
why are they, these different colours, are they do they have different tastes and different textures? Or?
I don't think so. Maybe it's a little bit stronger, the green asparagus.
Yeah, it is between green and white.
Yeah.
But one thing is that the people don't like to buy violet asparagus a lot of times. They think it tastes a lot different, but it doesn't actually.
Yeah, maybe it looks a little bit more elegant.
Yeah.
And it's white.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what are all the various dishes you can make from it?
Oh, you can do a lot of things with that. You can just have a gratined asparagus, or you can fry it. You can have it boiled, just with different kind of sauces and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So,
you name it, you can have it.
Yeah, of course. If you want to have a buffet, you really can have a lot of things. Also, beside that, you can have salmon and ham. You can have the German schnitzel or steak. Whatever you like.
Starting off, of course, with asparagus soup.
Yes,
and then
of course.
Moving on to the main course
and
of
that is
asparagus.
my most favorite. Yeah, asparagus soup.
So, did you say you can have schnitzel with asparagus?
Yes, you can have that. You will have that in the northern part of Germany.
I ate it the other day.
Oh. Good heavens!
Is this unknown down there? Or?
I've never heard the like.
Oh, really? Yeah, you can order all sorts of things. Some people, they just have asparagus with potatoes and sauce, and you can, like Margaret said, with ham or with a Wiener Schnitzel. That's my favorite. Yeah.
So my favorite is smoked ham. Mm-hmm. I don't need anything more.
Yeah, the North Germans are very inventive here.
Yeah, they are.
Can you have a sweet made out of it? I mean, you use asparagus for everything else. What about the sweet?
Barry, I've never heard about that, but
I haven't either.
Yeah, let's create a recipe for that.
That's right.
Asparagus
famous.
Ice cream.
Right.
Yeah, but I think it's good with
Kale
honey.
and asparagus ice cream. Yeah.
You want to set up a business there, Andrew?
That's right.
Could be quite...
Oh heavens! Yeah, no, there must be a market for it.
There is, for sure.
Right. Well, I think we've just about done asparagus then, haven't we? Oh, and there is one thing about asparagus. It has special effects, doesn't it? isn't it supposed to?
I think it's quite healthy, yes.
But isn't it supposed to be aphrodisiac?
I thought
thing?
I have read that.
I heard that. Well,
Yeah.
I know that when
okay.
you after you consume asparagus and you what do you say? Go to see a man about a dog.
Oh, that's
for
another
example,
thing. Isn't
yes,
it?
then you notice it smells different.
Yeah.
We don't want to get into that, but I just thought I'd mention that, as, you know, how Americans are.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, lower the tone of the program.
That's what I'm here for.
Good. Okay, well, I think we've just about covered asparagus now, but I would like to go back, if I may, to this dinner for one, because I just find this so amazing that we had this guy on from Grimsby saying he's going to open this exhibition next year to celebrate Freddie Frinton and Dinner for One. Marga, you're a German, so why do Germans like watching Dinner for One every year?
It's maybe just a kind of cult. It's, when you have Sylvester, the last day in the year, so you would like to celebrate something special, and that is the reason why we watch that.
And it's short, so you know you can always sit down. It only goes for a few minutes, and you always that's what people really like. They know exactly what's going to happen because they've seen it so many times.
They know the lines.
That's
don't
right.
they?
I know some
Well,
of the lines.
I think the thing is,
sure.
it's become a tradition, and the function of a tradition is that everybody has some common thing that they can all agree on.
Mm-hmm, that's true. Yeah, they all say, "I watched it." Yes, so did I. Yeah. Yeah. So you watch it down there too, Andrew?
I mean, not religiously every year. I have seen it because I'm sort of generally interested in comedy, basically, and but of course I come from the British tradition, and we don't have the same tradition that you get in many other cultures, where if you repeat something, it becomes funnier. We don't have the same kind of idea in Britain.
Okay.
Can you remember the lines? Do you remember what's the most famous line for you, Andrew?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's same procedure as every year, which is the one that comes up all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that's pretty much what the sketch is. It's
And
even
the
the
toast.
punchline.
Right.
And
The
the
toast
toast.
they always do. What they always say when they go around.
Yeah.
Cheerio, Miss Sophie.
Yeah.
You do that
Skull.
You do that so well.
You're looking
yes,
younger
exactly.
than ever. Sweetest little woman.
It's rather slightly ironic, actually, that the museum should be in Germany, because Freddie Frinton himself didn't like the Germans very much.
Really?
It
I
took
didn't. No?
Yeah, that's the thing. It took a long time to convince him to even do the sketch, and partly because he was a young man during the war, and he didn't really like the Germans very much at all.
Yeah. Well, I heard he bought the rights to it at some point. To the sketch.
Well, it was.
Yeah,
it
he
was his sketch.
owned the rights. He bought the rights.
Right.
Got it. And his family now have the rights to this. So they have the rights whenever this is performed or repeated on television. Yes. So, and the characters, we've got Admiral von Schneider, Sir Toby. Who are the others?
Admiral Winterbottom. Come on, no.
Mr.
So Mr. Winterbottom, and what was the fourth one?
Mr. Pomeroy?
Pomeroy, right. Yeah.
Oh.
So there's 4 of them, and they're all dead. So Butler James has to represent them.
And the other,
spoilers.
the other star of it, of course, is the tiger skin rug.
Right, who he trips over every single time.
And that's going to be featured in the museum.
That was actually that was a happy accident. It was when he was doing the sketch once, because he performed it many times. That's why his timing is so good in it, is because it's one that he'd done so many times before. And one time he actually accidentally tripped over the tiger skin rug as he walked past, and just thought, it's the audience laughed and thought, right, incorporate that into the sketch.
Oh, okay. So that wasn't originally part of it.
It wasn't originally part of it, no.
And another thing Freddie Frinton was very good at was playing the drunk.
Yeah.
That was one of his specialities.
But I read somewhere that he didn't, in his actual life, he hardly drank at all. So that was the one reason. Yeah, well, you have that sometimes. People play drunks.
Yeah,
Dean Martin.
Yeah, and it's very difficult to play it drunk, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. You have to watch what actual drunks do.
Yeah.
It's often the case, isn't it, that you often see people who are really good at playing bad guys, really evil guys, are actually, in real life, the nicest people you could ever meet.
Yeah.
It's a very strange thing.
So will you be watching it, Sylvester, Andrew?
That's quite a ways
Probably not. I mean, we don't even have a television.
What?
I think I've mentioned this before. We don't.
He lives in the countryside. He doesn't have a television.
Well, what's the point of having a television these days?
It keeps you contact with the real world, if you're
Well, I'm sitting in front of a computer that does exactly that.
Well, all right, okay.
It's this great thing. It's called the internet.
Right, all right, okay.
And indeed, and that brings us to the end of the April edition of the Expat Show, believe it or not. Don't forget that we hope to post separate podcasts of some of the items from today's show, including Dinner for One, the Rodo, the Globe Theatre, and an extended version about BFBS in Germany. Today you heard Andrew Bossen, Scott Hazlitt, Bastian Spiller, Marga Wienert, and myself, Barry Redfern. Until the next live show, which is on May the 27th, as always at 11 o'clock in the morning, always on a Sunday. We might have cameras too. Goodbye.
Bye.